Our featured speaker for this evening is Mr. Simon Owens. And I have to say I'm super stoked about this because as a nerdy scientist, I think that there's a big difference between data and information. And people who understand that tend to do really well in this world. And I think Simon understands this really well. He's the director of PR for the creative agency Just3. If you don't know who Just3 is, you're probably not a trending topic on the internet, because that's what they do. They create visual storytelling, and I know them from infographics, but they do some really, really cool stuff. They work for all the big names. You're gonna see this at the end. And what we're gonna do is, I was always curious how people do PR for agencies that create original content on the internet. And so Simon here is gonna come here and tell us a little bit about how you create sticking power and original content on the internet. So, please welcome our featured speaker for the evening, Mr. Simon Owens from Just3.
Okay, can I get my backup dancers up here? I actually want to start my presentation by talking about something kind of serious. It's a disease that ails millions of women, particularly young women. Usually young women either in college or about to graduate college. And that disease is duck face. From the sounds of it, some of you might know someone who suffers from duck face. It first emerged around the same time of the birth of MySpace and became an epidemic, and now has spread to millions of Facebook profiles everywhere. If you're like me, you will make fun of duck face when you see it on these Facebook profiles, and some of you might find it unattractive. But it turns out that it is not unattractive to the majority of people. There's this dating website, I'm sure you've heard of it. It's called OkCupid. Some of you look like you're on OkCupid dates right now. I hope if you are, you get laid. But the amazing thing about OkCupid that you see that differentiates it from a lot of other dating websites is that they're really smart in how they view data. They have a person who is dedicated solely to looking at their internal metrics, looking at the data of how their users interact, and they publish this blog called OK Trends. And the point of this entire blog is that it basically dives into the sociological trends within their dating website and tells you really insightful stuff about what things are really attractive to certain people. What do people click on? What makes you poke someone, or whatever the equivalent is on OkCupid. So with duck face and with MySpace style pictures, and whether or not you have your shirt off, or whether or not you show cleavage. And they're able to, these aren't like incredibly beautiful graphs, but they're able to really pull out really cool insights out of it. And this is one from one particular post that was published a few months ago. But the key thing behind it, and the whole point of this presentation, is how Just3 built its following. And what we found is that people are in love with data. They love original data. They love to publish articles, blog posts, tweet it. And that's what you'll see with OkCupid that you won't see with Match.com or eHarmony or those other dating websites, is that they actually, every time they publish a new blog post, they generate tons of blog hits and media hits. So a lot of like dating websites, mitten websites, websites that write about sex, even Gawker. This is where I originally got cued off to this particular blog post about duckface. Did you know that vegetarians enjoy oral sex more than meat eaters?
So does that mean they like meat, technically?
Vegetarians do like meat. So if there's one takeaway from my presentation, It's that we just come across company after company and organization after organization that is just sitting on a wealth of data that they're using internally. Some of them might be looking at it internally, but they don't realize that they are actually sitting on huge economic, sociological, newsworthy trends that they don't even know that it's there. And it's only now that companies like Just3 and others are really diving into this data and displaying it visually. And that's really how Just3 built its following. But let me give you an example. A few months ago, we published this infographic called the Geosocial Universe. We had a researcher basically come through years and years of articles and found the size by user base of all the major social networks, all the way from Skype, all the way down to Goala. And then they went back and found all the information they could find about the actual number of their users who use mobile phones and log into them with mobile phones. So we used visual storytelling basically to create this sun with these planets going around it. And as you can see, each planet represents a different social network, but then the shaded areas represent the moon. They're the part of that social network where people log in on their cell phones. And what you'll see with this is right around the time that this was published, there were several major news stories where this was relevant. It was right when LinkedIn was about to file for an IPO. It was right when MySpace was being put on the chopping block by News Corp. And it was also right around the time that Microsoft had just purchased Skype for over $8 billion. So what we were able to do at Just3 is we published this infographic just at that exact time, and we were actually able to micro-target all the journalists who were writing about these different stories. So all the journalists who were writing about LinkedIn at the time, about its IPO, all the people talking about the death of MySpace and how it's being put and just basically chopped up and sold for its assets, all the people who were writing about the Skype deal and what it meant for Microsoft in terms of how it was going to be able to compete with Google and Facebook, we were able to target all of those bloggers. There were probably over 300 that we pitched at that time. And it just happened that we hit them at the right time because we had something that was incredibly relevant to the reporting at the time. So over the span of its life, in about a month's time, we got over 200 bloggers and journalists to embed our infographic. We generated about 10,000 retweets and several thousand Facebook shares. As you can see here with this TechCrunch article alone, this was one of the first hits that we got. We targeted this guy because he was writing about the LinkedIn IPO. Just this one post alone got 2,000 likes and close to 5,000 retweets. And it didn't stop here. It just kind of spread. This is Andy Carvin. He's the social media reporter for NPR. He tweeted it out. He was one of the people that we hit. Then CBS picked it up. Then it moved on to other tech blogs. The Wall Street Journal posted it, and then the Washington Post. And so when you're talking about data and how you can build an audience using data, you gotta think about what kind of content really isn't shareable. Just3's been making infographics for a long time. We've been making videos for a long time. We've been making interactive infographics for a long time. And not everyone picks up in the same way that this one picked up. And so over time, we've gotten to see what really isn't shareable. And usually that's a good indicator of what kind of data you should be displaying. Recently, whenever we work with a client, we always say to them, we need complete creative control, because we find that most clients don't really know what's entertaining. And our most failed products are usually ones where the client had too much creative control. Recently, I was giving a video they wanted me to push out, and the video was really good. It showed really good economic data for about the first minute. And then at the end of that first minute, all of a sudden, the brand comes front and central. It becomes basically a commercial. And that was what I usually call dead on arrival. I refused to push it out. It was no good. It was too overly branded. The brand inserted itself too much. You really need to take a step back and make yourself just a part of the larger story. Weak data. One of the things we did recently with a major search engine is that they did all this polling around the 2010 elections around issues that people liked. But the only downside was the polling was completely unscientific. It was just an internet poll, completely worthless. And so when we created an infographic around it, nobody, except for conservative bloggers, because they'll post any shit that you give them, wanted to write. And one of the last things is a lot of people, they don't want to spend a lot of money, so they'll come to us just for a static infographic. when in reality they're throwing so much data at us that it really deserves either a video or multiple infographics. And one of the things that we see is if there's too much data overload, there's too much on page, people just get confused, they can't follow the story thread that you're going to have. With the geosocial universe you saw, there's only really one story thread with a certain number of data points. And it all fit on one screen. Today you'll see kind of an infographic bubble in which there's just infographic after infographic that's coming out. And every single one you have to scroll down for pages and pages just to see the entire infographic. And it's just too much. You have to be able to absorb it. It has to be made for the snackable web that it can be consumed quickly and posted to someone's Facebook wall or tweeted out. And what we found is that by creating great content, and one of the things that we always work into our contracts is that Just3 gets to claim credit for everything they do. It's a Just3 branded piece of content. So that we're closely associated with every piece of content that puts out. Yeah, it takes away somewhat from the brand, but it also lends some legitimacy to it because our name is on it. We want to put our name behind it. And what we found is that we will get tweets and Facebook shares for months, even years after we've put out a new piece of content. That piece of content continues to pay dividends long after that you published it to the web. And that can be anything from stickers, like we like to push stickers, and you'll be amazed how many people will take those stickers and go stick it in airports, on trash cans, on the walls. People from all over the globe will take pictures and load it up to TwitPic to show a sticker that they found. This Future of Solar infographic we published several months ago. This is a tweet that just came a few days ago. This blog tree that we make with Eloqua, several months old. We're still getting tweets about it. We're still getting ad messages on Just3's Twitter account. Same thing with the State of Influencer theory. A lot of these are just really old content, and it just continues to pay dividends for a long time after it's published. So we work with some of the biggest brands in the world. Most of our clients are Fortune 100 companies, and we don't have a single salesperson who works on my staff. There's nobody out there who's scheduling meetings with people at Google, at Samsung, at Microsoft. Everybody who comes to our company, we just have this email address at the top of our website. You want to work with us? hi@just3.com. And those clients, they're coming through infographics they saw on the web, videos, a lot of our interactive websites. They see it's a project by Just3. They say, wow, this is really good. I'd like to see something like that. And so they just email this hi@just3.com account. And I'm on that account, and I'll see these leads come in from Walt Disney Company, from Intel, some of the biggest brands in the world, and you don't have to have a single contact at this place. You don't have to know any higher up. You don't have to know the CEO. They come in organically. And so all these clients here, we didn't know anybody there. They just saw a cool infographic and came through it. That geosocial universe that I showed you guys earlier tonight, it cost us less than $2,000 to make it. And so far it's generated about $700,000 worth of revenue. Because we got it on every website, and so every person who Googles how to make an infographic, or just the term infographic, our infographic comes up, and we're the first person they go to inquire about it. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed my speech. Thanks to Thirsty.